even that, like I felt fear of failure to just go and lie down on my skateboard and turn my head back and forth. I think that resistance is here for everybody. And, if you do have an idea and you're interested in pursuing it, the first mogul to get over is way smaller than you think it is. You just have to man up and just be like, all right, this could fail, whatever, this could happen. The very second I started on this journey, I was embarrassed and I was worried I would fail.
Hey there, and thanks for listening to the Beyond These Clinic Walls podcast. I'm your host, Julia, a PT turned product professional, joined by my delightful partner in crime co-hosts, Emma.
This is my tribe. This is how I think.
And Emily.
That is the best getting into PT story I've ever heard.
Founders of the Clinician Transition. Each episode, we interview former rehab professionals who have leveraged their clinical skills into non-traditional roles. I invite you to come hear the journeys, follow the career paths, and learn about the opportunities beyond these clinic walls. On today's episode of Beyond These Clinic Walls, we are joined by Scott Dickenson. After finishing his schooling at 2 of the top-ranked physical therapy programs in the country, Scott decided to take the problem of neck pain and how to get rid of it into his own hands. As an orthopedic clinical specialist, Scott was treating patients with neck pain daily, but there was something missing. The tool his patients needed didn't exist. A portable, versatile device designed for neck pain relief, neck muscle strengthening, and neck mobility wasn't available, but he had an idea. An idea that would send him down the path of invention and product development, motivated by the opportunity to better serve the people with neck pain that he treated in the clinic every day. And make sure to check out more about Scott and NecksLevel at NecksLevel.com. And as always, happy listening.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. You guys are all friends at this point, so it's nice to be talking to some friends.
It's really nice having you here. Well, so my first question I ask all of our guests is to give us a high-level overview of your career journey. So for the listeners who aren't familiar with you, who is Scott? Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Scott Dickenson. I went to Pitt for undergrad in Pennsylvania, where I studied athletic training, because when I was injured in high school, I went to physical therapy, and the stereotypical story, I learned to like that profession, so I wanted to go into PT. And my PT recommended I become an athletic trainer first. And so I just blindly followed his advice, and I did so. And it was great advice. So I got hands-on as an undergrad student. And then I went off to become a PT. And I went to the other side of the country at University of Southern California in Los Angeles. And so I did my 3-year doctorate degree over there. And then I was missing the East Coast. So I bounced right back over to East Coast at the University of Delaware, where I did an orthopedic residency for a year. And right as the residency was finishing up, we were introduced to COVID, and things kind of went haywire. So us residents were out of the clinic all of a sudden, and I was home, and I had a lot of time on my hands. And all of a sudden, I had some more opportunities to work on some passion projects, and some we'll definitely talk about today, which is NecksLevel, my company. And so that's how we're here.
That's awesome. Maybe you can give us a little bit more into what is NecksLevel, what is your company, and and then we'll dive in a little bit more on like how the idea for it came about and the history behind it.
For sure, yeah. So my company is a rehab device company. So we've invented a product to help people with neck pain. And so, this is a little bit of the background without you even asking for it. When I was a PT student, and even when I was an athletic training student, I would be surprised to see how people were doing neck strengthening exercises or just neck rehab exercises. I would look around and see like resistance bands being tied around patients' heads, like kind of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like that kind of look. And then I would see like a patient pushing a soccer ball into the wall, like just heading it into the wall and holding it there. Maybe they'd turn their head back and forth. Or, they would do a hand isometric. So they would like put their forehead against their palm and push against it.
Love
and
those
then,
ones.
It was just like, I just kind of felt embarrassed for the profession I was going into. I was like, wait, really? Like the patient drove over here to do that? It's kind of embarrassing. And so like that was just kind of bouncing around in my head. And I was always obsessed with manual therapy as a PT student. Like I was always trying to learn manipulations and just get better with my hands. And one of my mentors did this C1, C2 rotation mobilization with his hands. So that's the joint that does half of our next rotation. And so he would pin C2 and rotate C1 on top of that in the seated position with his hands. And I was just like, God, that is the coolest technique. He did it on me. It felt great. And I was like, I need to invent a device that can do this hands-on technique. Like I want to create a product that can just give this feeling to everybody. So that was the motivation initially. And what came of it now, what's on the market is very different than that initial concept. But that's what got me going down the road. So I was a third-year PT student. I was in Arizona by myself, like my classmates were back in LA. Third-year PT student. I had like this Airbnb, which was on a farm, and I would go sit out on the roof. And their sunsets were gorgeous out in Phoenix. Like the sand would kick up in the air, so like the sunsets were like orange and pink. And I drew out the first prototype on a little notepad, and I was like, yeah, maybe this is something. And it was like a sliding board where they could turn their head back and forth on this sliding board. Like they would lie down, they put their head on it. And then there was this V cup, and the V cup was designed to hold C2 and let C1 spin on top of that. So that was the initial idea. That was stupid. Like that barely worked. And a lot of people are like, I don't get it. I don't know what you're going for here. But when I got rid of that stupid V cup thing, and people would just turn their head back and forth, they'd be like, yeah, this feels really good. And I was like, no, you're doing it wrong. Like that's not the product.
That's not the V cup. You need the V cup.
So eventually I wised up and just listened to them. And I sold like my first one or two like super clunky prototypes to people that had neck issues, neck stiffness or neck pain. I jumped way forward. We can move backwards again. But like people just love turning their head back and forth on this glider. And so that was kind of like the spawn of it all, and where I knew I was onto something.
That's really cool. How hard was it for you to like reshape where you were really set on the idea of this V cup and having it be the manipulation that your instructor was showing you? Was it really hard to kind of let go of that idea and listen to what the feedback was for people? Or were you like, okay, this is the direction I'm going to go in now?
A little bit of both. I definitely wanted my idea to be the right idea. Like I just loved the concept of it so much that I really wanted it to work. But then eventually, like the path of least resistance was to not bring in this clunky like thing that would hold on to the base of your neck and just bring the skateboard component. Like that was what everybody wanted anyway. It was easier for me to bring into somebody's house. Like I was just like, this is way easier, so I'm going to do that. Now, what's hilarious is yesterday that patent got approved. So we filed 2 patents in the history of the company. The first patent was filed way before the second one, and the first one, the old one, just got put through because it had so much confusing and weird stuff on it, including the V cup on the neck and like how the contraption would hold up this. I mean, I wish I could show you guys the pictures of the old prototypes, but like, that is all in the patent. Like I really thought I was onto something with that holding on to C2 stuff, and luckily that's fallen by the wayside. But it is on the original patent. So
yeah,
I mean, it wasn't very hard to get rid of it, Jules. To be honest, I was pretty happy that didn't work out.
Oh, that's too funny.
I'm just curious because I feel like I've heard this story a few times, and I never heard the V cup part of it. Is that because you're waiting for the patent to go through? Like are you still holding on to that coming out, and now you can announce
that
it?
For Beyond These Clinic Walls. That was he wanted to announce it.
Yeah. Big reveal.
Yeah.
No, it's just at least when I'm talking to PTs, they really want to hear the story. I'm happy to share the nitty gritty, like the manual therapy side of it. But when I'm talking to like whoever, my friend, like that goes right over their head. So I just started at the skateboard.
You have to tailor your audience.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think my first question that I had asked was like, there's so many areas and so many gaps and so many pain points, literally and figuratively in PT. Why was it neck pain that you chose? So I think there was probably that inspiration behind it. What made you pursue that even more? Was there any other underlying reasons or direction that kind of inspired you other than a sunset?
Yeah, a beautiful sunset. And I always liked working on the neck as a PT student. And the reason was it was the easiest place to work on your manipulations. Like, you or your friend would just lie down, head on a pillow. They just get to lie there. And then you can very easily hold their head and do whatever you want to do. Whereas like working on the lumbar spine to do manipulations was a pain in the butt. You had to control their entire body to make it work. So the neck was just easy to do manual therapy. So like, I kind of fell in love with that side of it. I liked the joint mechanics. Like I understood like how important the upper cervical spine was and how like the lower cervical spine was for rotation. Like that interested me. How the suboccipitals would turn the head, specific muscles within that group. I just kind of liked it, and I loved treating patients with neck pain because you could have a real impact with just a few techniques of your hands, like in within session. So I loved all that. And then I also had, personal bias towards going after neck pain because I have a history of whiplash and resulting neck pain. Like when I was a lifeguard in like middle school at my local pool, there was this blow up obstacle course, and the obstacle course started like 10 feet from the coping of the pool. So you would, if you were being a badass, you would sprint and dive and try to gap all the water and land on the obstacle course as opposed to jumping into the water and going to it. And so when I would dive, jump, and I'd land on my shoulder and have this big whiplash event on my long giraffe neck, which was, even longer and even thinner than it is now, like at that stage in my development. So I just had no chance of that whiplash force. And that was the start of neck pain for me.
Yeah,
So
that was the start of
like,
next level. Just a gangly teenager trying to do a Ninja Warrior course at the local pool.
Right. Yeah. And then, it stuck with me through PT school. Like I would be weightlifting and occasionally I would just like, it felt like I would just like explode a facet and I would have to go home. And like, I just had this like chronic recurring neck pain, and I would do chin tucks religiously, but I didn't have like that nice tool, that thing that people would actually like to use to help myself. And so, I definitely kind of wanted to scratch my own itch as well.
Yeah. Well, also just thinking, like adherence to a home exercise program is one of the biggest barriers for patients getting correct treatment and having successful outcomes. And I think cervical exercises are probably like the lowest adherence rate because of how awful they are. Like you said, you're just heading a soccer ball into a wall. You're trying to MacGyver a Ninja Turtle band around your head. So the more ease you can give the user to get through that, I mean, I can totally see how that is just so much more beneficial in terms of patient adherence too. So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. And so we've had this professional model in clinics for about 2.5 years now. And so all our marketing, like, we go to the trade shows for physical therapy, for athletic trainers, all our marketing has been towards the professional crowd. And through that time, through the last 2.5 years, we've learned that there's like a real opportunity for people at home with issues because one, they're buying it at a pretty high price point for a product that, you would get at home. And two, like we just get all these contacts from Instagram or from our store's contact form. Like, does insurance cover this? I'd love this for myself. Like despite all our marketing, not talking to the individual, like individuals keep coming, reaching out for us. One thing that, because people reach out to me and they ask, I have this idea. I'm really interested in starting this thing. Like, what were the first steps you did? Like, how do I get started? And I remember like my old ways were to like, watch movies and watch TV shows and like not do the thing that would make me feel uncomfortable. And I remember feeling quite uncomfortable on this like Saturday morning or something like that. Like, I'm not going to try this. Like, what if it's stupid? Like, this is going to be stupid. This is going to be embarrassing. I'm the only one that was like watching myself. No one was around. Even that, like, I felt fear of failure to just go and lie down on my skateboard and turn my head back and forth. I think that resistance is here for everybody. And, if you do have an idea and you're interested in pursuing it, like the first mogul to get over is way smaller than you think it is. you just have to man up and just like be like, all right, this could fail, whatever, this could happen. And so I think it's important to know, like, I was embarrassed myself, like the very second I started on this journey. I was embarrassed and I was worried I would fail. And so I don't know. I feel like it's relevant to anybody that has an idea.
Has that feeling let up at all?
I still, in some ways, it's hard to wrap my head around and feel like fully proud and like, confident in what I've done. But at the same time, like, the evidence proves that, something has happened here and I should indeed be proud. So I live in limbo going back and forth.
Expectations for yourself of what this could be? And like, did you have an end goal that you were fearful of not being able to achieve? Or did you not even let yourself kind of get to that point and just wanted to take it for where it was in the moment? I think that was kind of my question. It's a little existential.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I was graduating PT school, like invention was not on my mind. Like I was not thinking like, oh, I'm going to go down that road. It was between opening up my own clinic, becoming faculty at a university and doing research and teaching, or just, being like a staff PT. And I knew the staff PT wouldn't work out. So like, I was like between that kind of stuff. Like that's where I was going. And then I was like, well, whatever, I'll try out this idea. And so I lied down on my skateboard. And it was just like, that was like a small green light. It was like, yeah, this is cool. Like maybe there's something here. And then I like built the next prototype because it was fun. Like I was enjoying the process. It was the weekend, like whatever. And another green light. Then I had my neighbor who has chronic neck pain lie down. She loved it. Like she was like, yeah, this feels really good. Can I have one? Or something like that. And it was just like, it was just a series of green lights. And I really didn't have any pressure on myself for a long time on where it would go, because like I was just kind of tinkering. I was just kind of having fun. But then as the goals and the pressure grew as it became more successful.
Yeah.
After you, the first device we sold of the current model that's on the market was to the Philadelphia Eagles. And that was like the greatest moment ever for me. But it also was like, and I could now mess it up. Like it is obvious that this could either like go very well, or I could mess it up. I have a good product, but now I could make this thing fail through actions of myself. And so like that made me more nervous.
Yeah. Yeah. It's climbing a bigger mountain and then you're like looking down at it. It's like, oh, look at the elevation we're at now.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
One of my favorite things about your story is the why didn't I think of that aspect to it? It seems so obvious, not to downplay what you've done, but it's like, how did no one think of that before? And so it's not simple, but to your point, kind of the simplified version is what makes it so fab, in my opinion. It's easy for patients to understand. You look at it and you're like, oh yeah, duh. This looks like it could really help me.
I was just going to say, it makes my day when I'm like demoing this in a clinic or on a sales call and a PT. Like you can just see them kind of fuming. Like you can just see they're getting a little like angry at themselves. Like, how did I not think of this?
Well, the other thing about like the simplicity, like to compare it to writing or anything else, I feel like it actually takes a ton of work to get it down to something simple that everyone understands. And it makes me think of a whole bunch of products out there that need a lot of explaining. And it probably seemed like such an ingenious idea at the time, but the consumer is just like, okay, don't understand that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's the quote, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Something like that. I don't know who said that, but that's what helps me sleep at night, knowing that I invented a glider system that, is very not technical.
But it's twofold, right? Because it's like someone can think of an idea, but then you have to execute on it too. And like, that's also a big credit to not sell yourself short on, because thinking of the idea is probably like 1% of the entirety of the process, if that.
Oh my God. Yeah, the idea and even the prototype, like prototyping phase is like easy, fun, no stress. Like that, I think idea plus prototyping is like 0.1%. of the mental work I've done. 0.1%. Like all of the work goes to making this manufacturable and then marketing it and learning how to do sales and building a website and social media and contracting and manufacturing. It is a lot. And like you don't really think how much you have to do when you first think of the idea. But one of my mentors, a guy who invented a hip traction device, his name's Tony Rockland. He was the PT that came into my life as a third year PT student when I was in Arizona. And he just motivated me. Just seeing what he had done, I was like, well, I can do that. Like maybe there's something here for me. And we were on a phone call after I graduated, and I was like, well, Tony, I have this idea. I'm thinking about doing it. He's like, just know it's going to hurt way more than you think it's going to. It's going to cost way more money than you think it's going to. And it's going to take way longer than you think it's going to. And like that for probably any normal person would like deter them. But for me, it was extremely motivating. I don't know why, but just the way he said it, he's like, because he didn't sugarcoat it at all. Like, I think that's the most important part. Like, it's going to suck. And I was like, well, that sounds awesome. I don't know why.
Well, yeah, it's also, you seem like the person that's like, it was saying like, it can be done, but it's going to be a challenge. And I feel like you're the type of person that you're like, I want to be challenged on this. I want to have something to like,
for sure.
Me. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I would last 3 months as a normal staff physical therapist if that was what I was supposed to do. Like I would have a really tough time because it's tough to be creative. Working hard doesn't get you anything extra at the end of the day. And so like, I mean, it was just a terrible vehicle for me, I realized.
Yeah. Tell us more on that if you can elaborate. I think those are some common emotions that a lot of people feel, that they're being like understimulated and in a clinical role. And how is your role so very much the opposite side of the pendulum for that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to be creative, even if you want to be, if you're seeing, 10, 20 patients a day, because your mind is occupied with like carrying a conversation and like giving them the next exercise and, where you're going to push on their back or whatever. And so like to be creative in their care is like, well, I could try to think of some cool exercise. Or I could just give them bridges, and bridges are probably going to help them, and they already know what a bridge is, so take a lot less effort. And I would walk out of the door with the same paycheck. And I think my patient would probably do just as well as if I gave them some kind of cool fringe exercise that I just crafted, and then I'm going to post on Instagram later. Like I don't know, it just wasn't my thing. And then also, of course, like the pressure to bill more, and of course, I don't like having like a clinic director over me, like. All that stuff just wasn't for me. But like the other side of it is like, it's really nice to help people and like to have that personal connection with each patient is dope. But now I love the fact that I can help people from a distance. They might never even know me, but if they use the product and they get something out of it, that gets me going. That's a good thing.
Cool. What was the hardest part to let go of control or outsource?
Oof, I don't think I've done a good job of that yet. Ask me in 2 years, and hopefully I can tell you. The marketing side of things, the messaging is very difficult for me to let go of. Even like the photography, the videography, like everything has to be exactly as I want it, and just because I feel like I know what it has to look like. But really, I don't. Videographers and photographers, like they do have a better eye than I do for this kind of stuff. But like I am like super anal about anything related to NecksLevel because it's just so much my baby. Like I can't see anything not go exactly as I think is best right now. And so that will be an ongoing practice for me, like just letting go of the reins as it relates to anything kind of customer facing, like so anything that a potential customer or a customer would see is highly important to me, and I think that's fine. Like I think I can stay on the creative side and be the face of the company without much issue. But like I definitely need to. That's definitely something to work on, is kind of letting go of the reins.
That's for anyone listening, regardless of if you are an inventor or not. that's definitely something you would run into if you transition into the startup world. Kind of speaking for Emily and myself, we were not quite, but basically the founding members of our respective teams. And we were kind of doing everything in a way.
Mhm.
And then we have this saying that it's a famous article, you can look it up, of the idea of kind of giving away Legos. And so at first you want all the Legos, but if you give them away, you can do a better job with the Legos you have. And I remember as the teams were growing, kind of our mentors at the company showed us that article of like, hey, it's okay to give stuff away and you can actually do a better job with the responsibilities you retain. So just applicable regardless of where you're going professionally.
To add on to that, with the Legos analogy, part of that article that really stuck in my brain is that you, as an adult, really start to feel like a little toddler that's sharing your toys. It's like, that's my toy. No, that's what I do. And then it was really helpful for that article to call that out, because then I could recognize that in myself. I'm like, oh, this is a Lego moment. I need to let go. So that was super helpful.
You have to let go.
Lego.
Lego. Yeah.
I have a question. What advice would you give Scott in the garage or on the roof of Arizona? Knowing what you know now, what would you tell early inventor Scott?
Oof. I feel like I'd want to tell, like, I feel like I wish I could go forward in 10 years and then tell myself currently. I wish I could get that message right now. Back then, those were the easy days. I would say, you're onto something. Keep going, and just enjoy the process. That back then, it's just that's the fun stuff. So yeah, be light, be playful, and enjoy just tinkering.
Can you tell us more about like the other skills that you've learned along the way and like had to pick up? You've touched a little bit on it between like the marketing, kind of the business side of it. Is there anything maybe that surprised you or something that you found that you really enjoy or just absolutely hate that you've had to pick up along the way?
Well, I'll preface this by saying I'm a guru at nothing, but I've definitely like learned the ropes for a lot of things that are, it's just kind of amazing when you have to cover every aspect of a business. You have to, or you have to hire out. And when you don't want to hire out or you can't afford to hire out, it falls on your shoulders. So, I've learned how to, I think the main thing is like advocating for yourself, advocating for your product, advocating for your business. Like those were things that didn't come natural to me. Like some people are like really good self-advocators, and I always like respected them. Like, like if they didn't get what they wanted, they would not let that up, and they would push back. Like they would be some level of a Karen to get what they needed, right? Like that always inspired me. I was like, wow, that's like a really nice trait to have. It didn't feel like that was inborn in me. But now, like when everything is on my shoulders, and if something's not going quite right, say with like a manufacturing problem, and I'm just not that pleased, the people we're working with are going to take the path of least resistance. But I need to be the one that adds in the resistance to get what I know needs to happen. And so I think self-advocating, advocating for the business has been an important skill to learn how to develop. Just getting people to do what you need them to do is, of course, a good managing skill. And, you can do that poorly or you could do that very well and such that they don't even realize that you're asking them to do something or you're telling them to do something. So I would say those are like soft skills that have been helpful. And certainly I'm not a guru at that. Just presenting myself online. I kind of, like I didn't have an Instagram before I started doing this, but I was like, well, I need an Instagram. Like I need to get on social media to get this company off the ground. So, I'm on social media now. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn and Instagram, and we'll have to go more so in the Instagram social media direction as we go to the consumer market. So, just posting and like just observing what other companies do, how they market their own products. Like it's just been an exercise in opening my eyes and watching what's working for other companies. And like now, like I'm just picking up all this little stuff that was completely flying over my head in the past. You just become more aware of the whole marketing sphere.
It's time for the show and tell. Woohoo! Well, then, without further ado, let's get into the show and tell, Scott.
Yeah, sure. So what I am offering is a invention roadmap. So for anyone who's interested in developing a product, maybe you're a PT or an OT or whatever, and you want to create some hardware. That's what I know, hardware products. I developed a roadmap for how you should go about that. Starting with number one is it patentable? So inventions are patentable. If it's true and it's not out there previously, then you can think about getting a patent on it. And that's a path that some people can go down, some people will go down. Others will ignore that entirely and just skip all that and just start making money off of the product. That's another way to do it. So the patent is something to consider. There are two types of patents: utility and design patent. Utility is based more on the structure and the function of it. Design is more of its looks. So if you're going for the most valuable patent, you'd go for a utility patent. Generally, patents are expensive, so you have to decide if you want to engage an attorney. I got super lucky because I was a lowly PT resident when I was looking for someone to file a patent for me. And I was making a low salary, and I qualified for a pro bono organization within Philadelphia. And they set me up with an attorney who was pretty highfalutin at his location, and it was free for me. So I saved probably $20,000 in legal fees just to file 2 different patents. And so that was a great start. That was another green light that let me keep going forward, because I did feel like this was a true invention. And how do you check if your idea is already out there? You can do what's called a prior art search. You can do that yourself, or you can hire an attorney to do that. You know which one is cheaper. Google Patents is an easy way to search around for what's out there. Or you can hire an attorney, and they will cost $5,000, and they will peruse whatever their sources are to see if your idea is out there. Definitely start with your own search, and then if you still feel paranoid enough that you want a full legal search, then do that for a prior art search. Emma?
Yes, I need to interrupt before you go to step 2. Back to when you spoke to us at TCT a year ago or so. You told this story and you inspired Emily and me, and we were able to get a trademark for free because of you. So power of networking and leveraging your resources and learning from each other. So thank you for that.
That's awesome.
We means Emma. Emma used the we, but that was all Emma's work.
You have the idea, and maybe you're thinking, I want to go towards a patent because I feel like this is a true invention. Why do you even want a patent? A patent gives you the right to exclude other people from manufacturing your idea, right? So it doesn't give you permission to build your own thing. Right? You can build your own thing. It prevents others from building your thing. So that's an important distinction that not a lot of people understand about patents. So speaking of building, the second step I would recommend is, once you're like, all right, this is worth pursuing, then you need to build a prototype. And this is where I think everyone kind of stops. Because I have a lot of conversations with PTs or OTs, and they're like, Scott, I have this idea. And I've seen what you're doing. And it's like, I think I want to do something similar. And, this is my idea. What do you think? How do I go about it? And I say, you got to build a prototype, man, because they're always, and even myself included, I'm looking at the finish line before I've even started the race. And you have to build a prototype to know if you're onto something. That was the only way, building the prototype was the only way I realized I needed to cut away half of the product I had developed, which was the C2 stabilizing component. That was stupid. I didn't need that part. So that gets slashed away. And that only happened because I took the idea out of my brain and put it into the real world. So that's a very important step. And I think a lot of people get hung up on the prototype being ugly. That's the best part. You want the ugliest prototype that you can have, and you just need it to function. You just need to know if you're onto something. That is the single question you need to ask yourself in prototyping phases. Does it feel like I'm onto something? Does this put out a pain that someone has? Like, you need to be obsessed with what's the problem you're trying to solve, and does this or will this prototype solve the problem? So hopefully you can try this prototype out on yourself. That's where I'd recommend starting with. Hopefully it's safe enough that you can try it on yourself. The next step, so step number 3 in this process, would be to test the prototype on others. So you got to get other people's feedback. That was the most essential part for me, because I thought a lot of it was great. Like, I'm not sure I would have taken away anything from the original prototype, but I put 3 different people on it, and it was very clear what actually mattered and what was actually helping people. And so, I just slashed away half of the whole product because of other people's feedback. So, your thoughts are certainly valuable, but you need to hear the thoughts of others. And so I wrote in the handout, there is a 0% chance that you nail the design with your first prototype. It's going to change. So I think that's very important, because myself included, I thought I had it, and then I filed the patent, and I was way early on that first filing of the patent. And so I actually wrote out these steps for you in a different order than I did them. In hindsight, I wish I had done them in the order that I've written them out. So you've tested it out on yourself, you've tested it out on others, and you think you're onto something, and the feedback is good, like it's functioning. You feel like the product is where it needs to be in order to go to step 4, which is design for manufacturing. So this is a key point. It's very easy to build a prototype, like 1 or 2 or 10 prototypes. Very easy to do that, but that doesn't scale. The most essential part for making this a money-making machine is to have it be designed for manufacturing. So this can be made for cheaper, way cheaper than you're going to sell it for. In the world of hardware, it depends on the specific hardware, but where we're going, we need to be 4 to 5x cost of goods. So to sell the product for 4 to 5 times what it costs to make, that's a big gap between. And so that comes from a good design. A good design is essential. And so design for manufacturing, how do you do that? Well, you could try to do it yourself, and I certainly would have failed if I tried to do that, because I don't know how to create an injection molding computer animated design, right? So you need to hire out for that. And there are a few ways you can hire out. That would be through an independent contractor who's an engineer, and you can find them on Upwork or Fiverr. And that could work. That's how I started out with the early prototypes. But I would recommend getting to like the firm level if you can financially, if that's possible. And I think that's the best way, because they have product design experience. They see things from many different angles. Like, a lot of teams have engineers that specialize in specific materials. So our engineering team has a plastics group, a metal group, a hardware group, so a soft goods group. So like your single independent contractor on Upwork probably doesn't have a lay of the land for everything that matters to your product. And so if you're able to afford it in some way, and that could be through investors down the road or through sales ideally, then you should work with a group that really understands design from every angle. And so that leads us to the final step, and this is what I did too early, but the final step would be filing the patent. Once you have the design and you like the design and you think that that's the design that you're going to go forward with for mass production, then you're at a great place to file the patent right before you launch, and you'll be patent pending, which is the best place to be, because you're not paying any fees to continue having your patent, and you're able to tell everybody about your idea. That does lead me to one thing that I skipped over, which is if you should and if you can tell people about your idea, because technically it should be a secret if you want to file for a patent. So if you're filing for a patent, I would recommend getting a non-disclosure agreement. And you've probably heard about those through like highbrow people doing bad things and then getting NDA signed so it gets, covered up. But you need to use them in the world of patent as well, because that will allow you to show your idea to people and then know that your ass is covered if they go to try to tell somebody else about it or steal your idea or whatever. So NDAs protect you if you want to file a patent because your idea is technically still sealed. And so that would be one piece of advice. And you can find NDAs online for free.
Well, I was going to say, and then after that, you just have to sell it, market it, package it, do all the other stuff. Very cool. That's really, really great information, truly.
This is awesome. And it's hilarious too.
When can we expect it on Shark Tank?
Yeah.
Oh, that is FAQs. That is the FAQ. That is the number one FAQ. I should have thought of that.
So the launch coming up is like the home launch that's available to tell us more. Yeah.
We're actually launching 3 new products. So we have a 2.0 of the professional model, and this 2.0 professional model can also be mounted onto a wall. So we built a wall mount for clinics and sports teams. A lot of PTs kept asking, hey, can I use this in standing or sitting? I'd love to use this in a functional position. And that always kind of annoyed me because lying down is functional if you're sleeping or something. So whatever. Okay, yeah, sure. We can build a wall mount because it was like 100% of PTs after we go through a demo, they'd be like, I like this. Can I use it on the wall? And so eventually we just built a wall mount. And the coolest thing about the wall mount is that you can put the NecksLevel up on the wall, boom, it's a height adjustable, so it goes up and down. And then if you want to use it on the table, you can take it off in 1 second. So it's super sturdy once you mount it, but you can also take it off and use it on the table. So I was insistent on that. It would have been a lot easier if the NecksLevel didn't come off of the wall mount and it just stayed there. But PTs, they probably just want one for the clinic, and so we had to make it come on and off the table. So those are 2 of the new products that we're launching, and the third product is that home model. So the more economical model that has all the bang for the buck that you need. It just can't be mounted on the wall. Doesn't come with a carrying handle. There's not a built-in goniometer, which is great for the PT clinics. So it's really just exactly what the patient needs.
Well, thank you, Scott, so much for being here and sharing your expertise with us. For all of our regular listeners, I'm going to switch things up a little bit today. I can confidently say that Jules, Emily, and I give way more deposits than we withdraw to this community, lovingly. But as you all know, it is volunteer driven. We really don't ask for a lot. So today will be one of the rare withdrawals. If you've listened to this and you think it's interesting, give NecksLevel a follow on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you can find it. Every single person listening has some connection to a patient with neck pain. You need to tell either the owner of your clinic or if you're the owner of the clinic to look into this. And then once the commercial model is out or the home model is out, think of all your patients with neck pain and think about showing them this product. It's costs you nothing to do, and it helps one of your fellow TCT members. Is there anything on top of that, Scott, that anyone listening could do to help you out?
No, you guys have been helpful to the utmost. Emma, I did want to actually call you out and thank you for bringing me into this community at least 2 years ago or something. You reached out to me on LinkedIn when I was first getting going with NecksLevel, and I was like, who is this girl? What does she want? What's her angle? I was really trying to figure out your angle, but you didn't have an angle. You really were just trying to help me, and you really have helped me. You've connected me with several, product inventors or clinic owners, and sales have resulted. Important decisions have been informed through connections you've given me. So thank you. You've been awesome.
Yeah, great. Well, that's what it's all about, guys. Helping each other with no agenda. It's really just cool what we're doing. And we've all learned from everyone on this call has learned a lot from each other. So just keep making those connections and really good things will come out of it.
Absolutely.
Woo!
Woo! Thank you, Scott. Thanks to everyone for listening to this episode of the Beyond These Clinic Walls podcast. As always, be sure to follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram at Beyond These Clinic Walls for all the latest updates and episode releases. Make sure to join the Clinician Transition group on LinkedIn and Slack to be part of the networking community for like-minded rehab professionals. Questions, comments, concerns, or do you know someone who might make an excellent guest on our next show? Reach out to us at beyondtheseclinicwalls@gmail.com. And as always, thanks so much for listening.